So if you've really been watching my channel lately, you'll know that I've been on a bit of a health journey to try to discover what was causing my body physical pain and how I could correct it. But the thing about eating inflammation-friendly foods is that I have always associated gluten-free with something that tastes more like cardboard. And I also had a huge negative association with the cost. Like, talk about expensive. When you go to the store and see that health food aisle, that gluten-free aisle, holy cow. So through a lot of trial and error, I've discovered some incredibly delicious recipes that are very inexpensive. And I wanted you guys to come along on the journey with me this week as I prep a week's worth of food for my family. All of them are incredibly tasty and kid approved because there are 6 children in this family and I want to make sure that everybody eats the food and enjoys it at dinner time. So guys, let's get cooking. Comfort food. Is there anything better than food in the fall? We've got Thanksgiving with everything pumpkin and turkey and stuffing and deliciousness. And I don't know about you, but I often find that I definitely overindulge in the fall months. Today, I'm going to cook and bake an entire week's worth of delicious fall recipes for my family, but they're not just comfort food, they are super healthy. We're gonna have incredible flavors while boosting our immune system at the same time, and I cannot wait for you guys to join me. First, I'm starting by collecting a lot of the yummy ingredients I'm gonna be using today. Lots of onions, carrots, apples, herbs and spices, garlic, ginger, nuts. You can see here a lot of the stuff I'm going to be using today we actually grew in our own garden, and so I know that it's all organic and very nutritious from our soil. First, I'm starting with gluten-free breakfast stacks. We're gonna go all the way from breakfast to, at the end, you'll see a really yummy apple dessert here. I'm gonna do lunches and suppers as well. For these breakfast stacks, they're actually carrot, maple, walnut, and they're not really a cookie. They're not as sweet as a cookie, but they taste sort of like a hearty biscuit. And these are some of the ingredients we're gonna be using today. So to start, we're having 1.5 cups of rolled oats, 1 cup of almond flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. If you didn't see it, last week I did a complete KonMari of our pantry and it made the job today so much easier. I'll link that video if you want to watch it next. So just toss together your dry ingredients, and to that we're going to be adding 1/2 cup of coconut oil melted. I really like my Pampered Chef measure cup for this. Coconut oil melts really fast. It's also a nutritious oil. In the middle, make a well and add 2 eggs. Whisk them together. And to that, we're going to add 1/3 cup of pure maple syrup, 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Mix that together lightly. And then add in your melted coconut oil. Mix the batter until smooth. And then add 1.5 cups of packed grated carrot, as well as 1/2 cup of walnuts. I'm just spraying down my cookie sheet here. I've noticed that on YouTube and a lot of American recipes, they start every recipe like this with line your cookie sheet with parchment paper or tin foil. I don't know why they do this. I think it's to save them from having to wash their pans, but it's really wasteful and contributes to a lot of waste in our environment. Just spray your pan and cook everything directly on that. So I'm just making balls here. You can see this makes 16 stacks. And then take your fork and pat them down a little bit. Now they're going to go in the oven on 350 degrees for about 25 minutes or until they're golden brown, just like this. These smell so good, and I know that you're gonna love them. They don't taste like cardboard like a lot of gluten-free things do. And I just actually store them either in the fridge or the freezer and take 2 out for breakfast for myself. I know there's lots of good protein and vitamins in them. And one way you can make them taste even better, say your kids are having biscuits at the table and you want to join in, you can actually put butter and jam on them and it tastes kind of like a yummy, hearty muffin. So delicious. Lots of drips of jam here. Next, we're moving on to a mushroom and onion frittata. If you don't know what frittata is, it's basically a crustless quiche. You can have this for a breakfast food, but we've also done it for lunch or supper. We have a lot of really good ingredients here that are anti-inflammatory, including red onion, garlic, and mushrooms. Do you guys compost? Make sure that you are composting all of your scraps from cooking today, whether that's in the backyard or somewhere in your city that accepts compost. It's so much better for our soil and the earth. So I'm chopping up 2 red onions. As well as several cups of mushrooms. So these are 2 small packs. You can see here just how much mushrooms and onion I have in here. I love mushrooms and onion, so that's okay with me, but that's to replace the crust and the bacon and what you would normally put in quiche with just a lot of extra good for the immune system veggies. Now we're gonna crack 12 eggs. And to that, I'm adding 3 to 4 cloves of minced garlic. Half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and about 1 to 2 cups of milk. If you're dairy free, feel free to skip this part. Give that a good whisk. In your pan, top with whatever cheese you'd like. I like an old white cheddar because I've heard that aged cheddar is actually better on your system than a newer cheddar. But you could definitely put like goat cheese or DSLR cheese if you'd like, and then cover that with your egg mix. Bake this in the oven on 350 degrees for about 40 minutes. You'll see when it's done, it's all puffed up and oh, it smells so delicious. This is a good one to bring to a brunch as well. Good gluten-free option. Next, let's make a batch of soup for lunches. So I'm taking a butternut squash and we're just going to peel it, de-seed it, and dice it into 1-inch cubes. Put your oven on 350 degrees to preheat. And you're just gonna coat these cubes with a couple tablespoons of olive oil, half a teaspoon of salt, and a dash of black pepper. Stir this together to coat. And I like to bake these on my cooking stone, but you could definitely do it in like a 9x13 pan as well, or on a greased cookie sheet. You wanna roast these for about 1 hour. You can see what they look like, starting to brown and caramelize a bit, and very soft when you bring them out. Smells like fall. Now in a pan, we're going to put 2 white onions. By the way, you could easily half this recipe for a smaller batch if you don't have a big family like mine. And to this, we're going to add about 2 inches of ginger. I measured in inches. You're just going to chop this up along with 4 cloves of garlic. So lots of garlic and ginger in this soup. And then my secret ingredient that makes this soup so delicious is 2 Granny Smith apples. So you're going to peel them, de-seed them, and chop them into small chunks. Add those into your mix on the stove. Then add in your squash. And next we've got paprika, cumin, salt, and pepper. So you're gonna do about a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of paprika, and just a dash of black pepper. To that, I am adding chicken stock. You can definitely do veggie stock if you wanna keep this vegetarian. I'm doing 2 full cartons. That's 8 cups total. Bring this to a boil and boil for about 15 to 20 minutes until everything, like the apples and everything, are nice and soft. Now you can use an immersion blender or a larger blender to really get this smooth. At this point, you can definitely add half a cup of cream or some sour cream to make it creamy, but I like it just like this, and then people can add a dollop of sour cream on the top of the soup if they like. Bring out a fancy tureen for soup, and you've got such a nice fall meal. Next, let's make an Asian coleslaw. I'm actually taking this recipe, it's partially based on a recipe from this book, Meals That Heal Inflammation by Julie Daniluk. I'm going to link this book down below for you guys because it has been life-changing for me. I've loved trying out so many of the recipes, and this one is a variation of her Asian coleslaw, so delicious. So I'm just using pre-packaged kale slaw that's got carrots, red cabbage, and kale, but you could certainly chop your own cabbage, kale, and carrots, about 6 cups. Let's do a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, a 1/4 cup of olive oil. I like my Pampered Chef prep bowls because there's measurements on the side so I can see how much I'm doing. A tablespoon of honey, a tablespoon of rice vinegar, and then about 1 inch of ginger root again, and you're going to mince that. Now give that a good shake. You could use a mason jar for this as well. They're really good for shaking things up. And you can see how delicious that dressing looks. To your salad, add half a cup of sesame seeds and your entire thing of dressing. This is actually one that my kids really, really like. Sometimes I have a hard time getting them to eat salads, but even my picky daughter liked this. She really likes the lemon juice taste in it. So it's just a nice, refreshing side salad. Okay, now we're gonna make an allergy-friendly, inflammation-friendly shepherd's pie. So I've got here 2 pounds of beef. You could definitely use turkey to make this taste more Thanksgiving-y. All of these herbs will make it taste like Thanksgiving. We've got sage, we've got Italian herbs, we've got cumin and salt, as well as all these hearty vegetables. 2 cups of onion, 2 cups of chopped raw carrot, 1 cup of chopped celery. You're gonna stir that and fry and cook it all together.
Yeah, no, nothing's complicated with
Now we're gonna make the mashed topping. So I've got 5 to 6 large sweet potatoes. I find these are better for my pain and inflammation. White potatoes actually can be quite a trigger for chronic pain, and sweet potatoes don't have that same chemical. They're also a lot lower on the glycemic index. So once we started doing shepherd's pie with sweet potato topping, I couldn't believe the difference. So you're gonna chop up your sweet potatoes into pretty small chunks and put them in a pot for boiling.
It's just the way that I get every time that I am with you. Your laughter takes me to heaven. I just want to make you.
You can see after about half an hour, they're nice and soft. I'm adding olive oil once more and giving it a good mash. Now we're going to add in 2 cloves of garlic, a teaspoon of sage, 3 tablespoons of Italian herbs, mine's rosemary and basil and oregano, a teaspoon of salt, a dash of cumin, and just give that all a stir with all of your herbs and spices, and then add 2 cups of frozen peas, or fresh peas if you have them. I know we don't have fresh peas available in Ontario right now. Stir that together and cook for about 5 minutes. Then you're gonna put it in the bottom of a greased 9x13 pan and top it with your mashed sweet potato. Now, at this point, you can bake it in the oven for half an hour to meld the flavors, or you can do what I'm going to do and put it in the freezer so it's available for later on in the week. This would be really delicious served with this Asian slaw, by the way. Just a really nice side for it. Next, we're going to make a pumpkin sausage spinach pasta. Now, first we're gonna start with rice pasta, and this stuff was really cheap from Walmart, and I find I can't tell the difference between it and a wheat pasta. It's so good. So what I've got here is some seasoned ground sausage, and you can use pork or turkey. We've got 4 minced garlic cloves, half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, and half a cup of either shallots or diced white onion. Toss everything in the pan together and cook it as one. I was just adding in several cups of spinach there, stir it together until it's wilted.
Everybody's been saying that you're up to no good.
And then we're going to drain our pasta, but we're going to reserve the pasta water because we're going to use it later in the recipe, so don't dump it out. Now I know what you're thinking, pumpkin, how is that going to taste in pasta? You would be shocked. Try this recipe, guys. All of my kids ate it up. They loved it so much. So we're going to add a pinch of nutmeg, half a teaspoon of salt, and a dash of black pepper, and just stir that and cook that together. If you make any of these recipes, link me on Instagram at Jenn Least. I'd love to see your finished product. Add some pasta water in here. I added 1 cup just until you feel like it's a good consistency for a sauce. You could add more or less than that. And then add in your pasta. Stir it all together and voila, so delicious. Give me a like down below, guys, if you have seen a recipe here that you're enjoying before we move on to our dessert.
I'm going to smile, but I would never, ever would have believed them.
So we're gonna do stuffed apples next. These are fresh Ontario Macintosh apples. I'm just taking out the centers. This is a great alternative to apple pie. It has all the same scents and flavors, but it has no sugar whatsoever, and obviously no gluten because there's no crust. A lot of people stuff apples with brown sugar and butter. We're not gonna do this today, but you're still gonna love the taste. We've got a cup of chopped pecans, half a cup of dried cranberries, as well as cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg, and we've got dried pitted dates. So I'm chopping up 4 dried pitted dates. And we've got 2 teaspoons of cinnamon we're gonna add, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, and half a teaspoon of ground cloves. Mix that all together, and then we're gonna stuff the centers of our apples with that mixture.
Here she goes. Lucky, lucky, lucky me.
Next, we're gonna add some honey. If you have raw honey, use that. That's definitely healthiest. And we're gonna drizzle about 1 to 2 tablespoons of honey on top of each apple. So you'll see here just how covered they're going to be in honey. Time for some Wellesley apple cider. If you live in Southern Ontario, you'll know all about this apple cider. It's so delicious, it's local. So we're going to fill the pan with 2 cups of apple cider. Definitely do this recipe in half with just 4 apples if you're a smaller family. We're going to bake these in the oven on about 325 for between 45 minutes and 1 hour. You'll know it's done when the skins are starting to split and they feel soft. I wish you guys could smell my kitchen right now. It smells like apple pie, fall, and we just like to serve it with a scoop of ice cream, whether that's a coconut ice cream, non-dairy or dairy, whatever your preference is. And my kids just gobble this up. They have a lot of fun digging into these apples. You can see here the cross section with all of those yummy nuts, cranberries, and spices on the inside. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed cooking and baking with me today. Should we do this again? I think so. As always, make sure you're subscribed and have the bell notifications turned to on. But until we do this again, have no fear, I've got lots of other cooking videos here that you can watch in the meantime. Happy fall, for the least. This is Jen.